Well, here it is. It has finally reached Australian shores. The all-new Chevrolet Corvette in factory right-hand drive specification for the first time. Now, when the Corvette was first released in America in the 1950s, it was tagged as America's sports car. And that started a really interesting debate that's gone on through all the generations of the Corvette. Is it a sports car? Is it a muscle car? Is it a supercar? And that's the question that this new one has to answer, because not only is it right-hand drive for the first time, but it's also rear-engined for the first time. And traditionally, that's been the domain of the supercar, not the muscle car. And while the people who don't like Corvettes might have always said, well, it's definitely not a muscle car, that's something like a Camaro in Chevrolet speak, I don't know where you define it now. Where do you place it? Is it a muscle car? Is it a supercar? The engine at the back didn't really sit well with a lot of the Corvette traditionalists, but I think the important point is that this vehicle needs to appeal to more than just the Corvette traditionalists. Thanks to GMSV, it's available in Australia. It is factory right-hand drive, as we said. So let's delve into whether this is a muscle car or a supercar or something in between. The C8 Corvette range starts from $144,990 before on-road costs for the 2LT Coupe. On test here, we have the 3LT Coupe, and it's available from $160,500, including GST and luxury car tax, but before on-road costs. Customising your Corvette is something buyers can have plenty of fun with, and there's a range of options available. Top of the range is the flagship Carbon Edition Coupe, which starts from $189,900 before on-road costs. Standard features include Drive Mode Select, dual zone air conditioning, rear view camera, an 8-inch infotainment touchscreen, satellite navigation, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, rear cross traffic alert, head-up display, a 12-inch configurable driver display, and staggered 19 and 20-inch rims, and a nose lift kit. The 6.2-litre LT2 V8 engine is mid-mounted and standard across the range. It generates 369 kilowatts and 637 newton meters and drives the rear wheels via an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. The auto is standard for all local examples, and the engine features variable valve timing and active fuel management. Coasting, it can run on 4 cylinders, helping to keep the fuel use figure low. On test, during regular driving, our average fuel use settled into the mid-12s, pretty impressive for a car with the performance envelope the Corvette has. I absolutely love the styling of this car. It's unashamedly, in terms of the exterior, more supercar than muscle car, I reckon, just by looking at it. We've had plenty of comments today while we've been out testing that it looks like a Ferrari, or it looks like a Ferrari should look, or it looks better than a Ferrari. So that'll tell you that the styling really is catching people's eye. Really sharp front end, it sort of comes together as a point. And Corvette has been heading this way for a while in terms of the way it looks, but I think the styling of this car, the angles, the lines, the low ride height, the low roof height, just all comes together beautifully. And most importantly, it's got completely useless storage in that front boot there, which absolutely ticks the supercar box. Now, if the front end looks stylish and wedgy like a supercar, the rear end, well, that just looks plain aggressive. This is as tough as nails back here. It's wide, it's squat. It really does look like an angry thing at the back. And I think that absolutely plays its part in toughening up the whole Corvette thing. Whether you like the styling or not, I guess that's a personal perspective, but for me it just looks really tough, and I think that's particularly important. The other thing is too, there's no real useless additions here. The wing is quite neatly tucked into the body. There's not parts hanging off it and stuff that doesn't really look like it needs to be there. So depending on the angle that you're looking at it, it can look either stylish or really tough, and I like that. Plus there's an added bonus back here. If you lift the engine lid, you obviously get to see the prettiness of the engine, but you also get a fairly useful boot back here. I made a joke about the boot at the front. It is fairly useless for anything other than a briefcase. This is actually quite big. You'd fit a couple of medium-sized suitcases in there. However, probably don't carry your groceries with your ice cream home in. One other little design feature that we couldn't let this video go without mentioning is the door handles. They're under here, really easy to access on the outside. You don't even know they're there, and there's a really clever design for the door handle on the inside. If we carry the supercar versus muscle car argument in here, into the cabin, I reckon once you spend a bit of time in here, you're going to be thinking that it's more like a supercar than a muscle car. This feels very sports car-like, very driver-focused, and very much like we would have expected out of things like Ferrari, Lamborghini, Audi with the R8, Porsche 911, those kinds of vehicles. And I know that the Corvette may not actually punch right up to that level, but gee, I tell you what, it's pretty close. There's some really interesting design elements, and we've had people look in this car and say, oh, it's a bit out there, the cabin, and I'll leave that up to you to judge, but there are some interesting design elements. This line of switchgear along here is quite smart in a way, even though it looks very left field, because what it does do is it cleans everything else up in front of you. So you've got all your air conditioning controls, your on and off switches, and seat controls here, so heated and cooled seats, all in that line there, really neat. You've got some cup holders here, gear selectors here, driving mode there. There's also an electric lift for the front of the car to get it over speed humps, and then some basic controls on the steering wheel as well. So there's, in a way, quite a few buttons, but it doesn't seem like there's too much switch gear to make it all very complex. The passenger compartment is walled off a little bit to the driver. I don't mind that because it puts the driver in something that feels a little bit like a cockpit. The driving position itself is really good. For a car of this kind that's rear engine, that's quite low to the ground, the driving position, the visibility is really high quality. You get these glass roofs, so you know the jury's out a little bit. It's not a particularly hot day today. I don't know what they'll be like on one of those 40-degree days that we get in Australia. Jury's out on that. I like the red. There's suede. There's a little bit of, you know, contrast stitching, red stitching on the black trim, things like that. I think it goes together really well. And this is going to cop some criticism. There's people out there who say, oh yeah, American cars, they can't match up to the Germans, the Italians, the British when it comes to sports cars. Those people are always going to criticize that car. But I think if you've owned American cars in the past, if you've always wanted an American performance car, you're going to get in this and think it's a really, really well executed cabin. The engine is, as we often say with naturally aspirated motors, sensational. The way it delivers its power and torque and the sharp throttle response ensures the Corvette is a joy to drive on any road in any conditions. This is one of the truly great V8 engines, regardless of where it is assembled. There's obviously a lot of focus on what this vehicle looks like. Everywhere we've stopped today while we're shooting this review, we've had crowds of people hanging around telling us how amazing it looks like an Italian supercar, and how stylish it is from every angle. People just want to take photos of it and they want to have a close look at it. But there's something that's equally as important, if not more important, especially if you're going to spend 170,000 Australian dollars to buy one of these cars, and that's what it drives like. And I have to tell you, it is a seriously impressive car all round. It's benign and comfortable and easy to drive in traffic. So we're on one of our favourite twisty roads at the moment, but we obviously had to negotiate a hell of a lot of traffic in the inner city to get out here. And it's just like driving any regular small hatch. It just tools around town, rides really nicely. It's not nasty or aggressive. The gearbox is smooth. The steering's really easy to use. The brakes feel good, and it behaves really, really well in traffic. But then you get out here, and considering its rear engine, mid-engine, this is the first time Chevrolet's ever done that, and it's rear-wheel drive, it's actually beautifully balanced. It doesn't feel too tail-happy. It doesn't feel dangerous when you're attacking a corner, even if the road's a little bit slippery, and it's a really easy car to drive quickly. So I think Chevrolet's done an amazing job of the way they've balanced this vehicle out, and the feel that you get from the cockpit when you sit in it, that it's very driver focused, carries through to actually driving it. So it remains the quintessential American sports car, which means you can do anything. You can take the roof off, you can go for a drive, sit in traffic, use it during the week, but it's a hell of a lot closer to a supercar than it ever has been, and than the price tag would indicate as well. I'll tell you one thing, if you value a car based on how it makes you feel and the reaction that it gets on the street, this new Chevy Corvette is worth about double what they're charging for it in Australia. We have spent the whole time we've been driving it chatting to people who've told us how amazing it looks, how fantastic it sounds, the value for money, the styling, everything. Just now, we got out of the car, there was a bloke here with his son in a 360 Ferrari. He was Italian, driving an Italian car, and he told us that this thing looks fantastic. So, if you've got the Italian fans telling you that the Corvette looks amazing, well, Chevrolet stylists have done something right. For me, I really do love this car. I think it's incredible value for money. I think at $170,000, it offers unbelievable bang for your buck because it's a fantastic thing to drive in addition to the way it looks. Let us know what you think, because beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So we'd love to hear what you think of the styling. Put it down in the comments section below. In the meantime, hit like if you've enjoyed this video. Click on subscribe to stay up to date with all of our latest content. And the full review of the new Chevy Corvette is at drive.com.au.